I think his tape is phenomenal. He runs such crisp routes. He's a deep threat. He's fast. He ran a great 40 time.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. In our previous episode, we went over the first two rounds of our Dynasty rookie draft. It's a 14-team, 5-round draft. However, we just did the first two rounds because it really is a lot of picks. Now, today, we're going to finish off the final three rounds. So rounds 3, 4, and 5. Certainly a lot more lesser known players. So these are going to be the sleeper picks of your league. We did 28 players in our previous episode. So, these are our picks from 29 all the way into the 60s. So we're talking about players that are going to be lesser known. And Vaz, any thoughts going into this or recapping our previous first two rounds at all?
Mainly, I'd like to say that the beauty of drafting before the NFL draft is rounds 3 and 4, and even 5 if you're super lucky. Because when you get to rounds 3 and 4 in a post-draft fantasy football draft, it's much harder to find hits. But in this format, I find that the 3rd and 4th round picks are a little bit more valuable than standard leagues because you're drafting before the NFL draft, so you can find some sleepers that may go in like round 2 or round 3 of the actual NFL draft.
Yeah, certainly can get good landing spots as well. And if they get, like a wide receiver going to Kansas City, even as a 4th or 5th round pick, you'll take that over perhaps, maybe a 3rd round pick that goes to not as a desired destination like the Patriots or the Giants, perhaps. So, yeah, absolutely. There is a little bit more randomness to this, but at the same time, if you do your homework, then it certainly can pay off. So the previous draft, we completed the first 28 picks. Now, also in this league, we do have a reward for the winner of the toilet bowl. So the winner of the toilet bowl gets the final pick of the 2nd round, or basically a pick between the end of the 2nd round and the start of the 3rd round. So theoretically, you could call it pick 215. And in this league, that player was Jermaine Burton, wide receiver of Alabama. What did you think of the pick?
Yeah, so the winner of the consolation bracket gets pick 215 in this league. And if you've watched my previous video or the video before our previous video about my top 24 ranked rookies, then you'll know I'm super high on Jermaine Burton. So I was looking to trade up into the beginning of round 3 in order to snag this guy. So I was a little bit heartbroken when he came off the board at 215. I thought it was a phenomenal pick. He's my 24th ranked rookie, and he's higher than 24th for me just based purely on tape. The reason he's at 24 is because he's projected to get low draft capital, and I think a lot of that has to do with some character concerns. But in terms of just tape, I think his tape is phenomenal. He runs such crisp routes. He's a deep threat. He's fast. He ran a great 40 time. So he's athletic. He's a yak monster. There's really, like, when I watch his tape, there's nothing I dislike. And I think if he had no issues with regards to character, he'd be like a consensus 2nd round pick in the NFL draft and going much higher in rookie drafts. So I love taking him at 215. I think it's a really high upside pick, and I was very jealous of the pick.
Yeah, and certainly when you win the toilet bowl and you get a free player, right, for 215, I've seen it where another league that I'm in, the winner of the toilet bowl, the previous previous season, they actually got 115 in that league instead of 215. But with that 115, actually, I should say it was 113 because it's a 12-team league. But they went on to win the championship the very next year. So sometimes, getting that free player, it really can vault a team. It's an extra value that you do gain. And certainly, as you mentioned, they were able to use that pick in this case with Burton being a solid pick. We'll see how that team does next year. Let's take a look at first pick of the 3rd round then was Jalen McMillan, wide receiver out of Washington, playing opposite Odunze. And we're not going to go over every pick. There's just simply too many. But let's also take a look at the second pick of round 3 was Javon Baker, wide receiver out of UCF.
Right. So I think, yeah, like you said, there's so many players to go over here. So I think we have to be a little bit like choosy with who we talk about. So I've picked out some of my favorite and then least favorite players to go over from rounds 3, 4, and 5. So here in round 3, at 302, I really like Javon Baker. I like the pick. I loved his tape. He was the biggest riser on mock draft database in terms of wide receivers over the past 2 months. Yeah, he just shot up mock drafts. And his tape is really good. Like he runs really good routes. He's got great hands. He doesn't drop any passes. Very good player, sneaky athletic. His tape has a lot of double moves, so he's capable of putting the moves on the cornerback and getting deep. Like I really liked his tape, and I liked his tape over guys that I have ranked higher, like Malachi Corley. So I think at 302, it's a great pick, and I know in our league, the owner traded up to 302 to grab him, so I'm sure he loves his tape as well.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And yeah, anytime you see players moving up in order to get somebody, certainly is a sign for sure. Taken next were 3 straight running backs. Audric Estime out of Notre Dame, then Ray Davis out of Kentucky, and then Will Shipley out of Clemson. What are your thoughts on these guys?
Okay, so you might see a trend, just like rounds 1 and 2. I'm not a big fan of drafting running backs in this draft class, and I did not like these 3 picks at all. I think even still at this point in the draft, there's some very valuable receivers. There's some good value at receiver here, and I think all 3 of these guys, Estime, Davis, and Shipley, they have big holes in their game. Like Estime, his tape was pretty good actually for a bigger back. He runs through the hole like powerfully. I liked his tape, but then he went to the combine and he ran a 4.71. And you just don't see running backs that are that unathletic hit in the NFL. It's like you got to be like it's like 1 in 100 that running backs run a 4.7 plus and do anything in the NFL. It's the odds are so against him. And then Ray Davis, also again, decent tape, but he's got another big red flag. He's turning 25 in his rookie year. So like I just don't see these guys doing much. If they needed like 5 years in college to produce, I don't think they're going to produce in the NFL. And then Will Shipley, he's one of he's been a consistent follower on mock draft database. I did not like his tape at all. I found that he did not run well between the tackles. He's not a good pure runner. And I don't even think he's that great of a pass catcher. I think he's just going to be like a complementary piece for an NFL team. And to be honest, out of these 3 running backs, Estime, Davis, and Shipley, I don't really see any of them being more than just a complementary player. So I don't like the picks here at the beginning of round 3,
All right.
especially with some receivers that were still on the board.
Mm-hmm. And our third tight end of the draft was selected with the 6th pick of the 3rd round. That was Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State. And then running back out of Louisville, Isaac Grendo was taken 7th pick out of the 3rd round. What are your thoughts on him?
So yeah, I did want to speak about Garendo because actually I really like the player. I think he was taken a little bit high because he's probably going to be like a 5th round pick. He's like a work in progress, but he blew up the combine. He ran like a 4.33 40 at 220 pounds. And athleticism in running backs is super important. It's not the case with receivers, but with running backs, it's very important, and it correlates well to future success in the NFL. And I liked Garendo's tape, so he looks a little bit raw, but I think like he's got a potential to be drafted in round 4 or 5 of the NFL draft, and a team probably will be patient with him because he does have immense athleticism and he can probably help out in special teams to begin his career. So I liked the player. I wish he would have been picked a little bit later, but if at this stage, if you like a guy, I have no problem with going out and grabbing him. So I like the pick.
Yeah, I think
I should say I like the player.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing ESPN's Mike Clay really liking Garendo as a sleeper. He was saying that, hey, this is a guy that I have as a sleeper. It's kind of like his secret pick. So he certainly has turned some heads since his combine appearance,
Yeah.
as you mentioned.
You
Uh,
know, Jason,
yeah,
I'll add something to that. I think fantasy managers are starting to learn because a couple years ago, Isaiah Pacheco did the same thing. He came in as an unknown and he blew up the combine. And I mean, players were getting him in the fourth and fifth rounds of rookie drafts, and then now look at him; he's worth a first round pick. So I think fantasy managers are starting to realize that like the combine is very important for rookies, and when you get to this stage of the draft, at pick 45, why not take a chance on a really athletic running back, right?
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do?
like, subscribe, subscribe. Next up was pick 8 of the third round, Devontae Walker, wide receiver out of North Carolina.
Okay, so another pick I really loved here. I think we could probably combine. No, let's just talk about Tez Walker. So I don't love his route running. I think he's a below average route runner, but he's got great speed and he's strong. He can win like a couple other ways. He doesn't necessarily need to be a great route runner because he wins with strength and speed. And he's got good playmaking ability. He's got good like contested catch ability. I think he's a good player. He's my 29th ranked player, and he was picked here at I think pick 37. So I like the pick a lot.
All right, moving on. 9th pick of the third round, Bucky Irving, running back out of Oregon. 10th was Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia. 11th, Cade Stover, tight end out of Ohio State. The next line of quarterbacks was Spencer Rattler, as he was taken with the 12th pick in the third round. And then Theo Johnson, tight end out of Penn State, was taken 13th. And then Jacob Cowing was the final pick of the third round, wide receiver out of Arizona. Thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah, I'll touch on the last pick there, Cowing. So if you're playing in a PPR format, I like this pick for this value here. He's like a slot player, so he's got potential to get a lot of receptions. Not a lot of receptions. I mean, this is like the fourth round of rookie draft, so nothing is for certain. But I think like he's got legitimate upside. He put up a ton of production in college, and that correlates well to future NFL success. So I do like the pick. His tape is decent. I think he's got some upside, and I like the pick here.
All right, let's take a look at the fourth round, starting with Kamani Vidal, running back out of Troy, and another running back was taken second in the fourth round, Isaiah Davis out of South Dakota State. Any thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so again, I don't really love drafting these running backs here at the beginning of the fourth round. I think at the beginning of the fourth round, you're looking for a home run. Everybody here is looking to hit a home run, or at least keep a guy that could stay on your roster. But I think both these guys, it's going to be tough to keep them on a fantasy roster. I think they're both likely late day 3 picks. I think they could come off the board in like round 6 or 7. I don't see a lot of upside here. I think they're probably like going to be, depth pieces on an NFL team. And there's still a couple of receivers that are available who I could see being day 2 picks. So I really dislike these picks here.
Okay, let's move on then to a couple of wide receivers in Brendan Rice out of USC, Luke McCaffrey out of Rice. And then it was Jaheim Bell, tight end out of Florida State. Aeneas Smith, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. And then Johnny Wilson, wide receiver out of Florida State. Any thoughts on these guys?
So yeah, I like all of these picks over the 2 running backs that went before them. I think they all have more upside to go higher in the draft. And I mean, like especially... I mean, you can notice those 2 names at the beginning, right? Rice and McCaffrey. I mean, why not? At this stage in the draft, go for some bloodlines, especially Brendan Rice. Like, I really liked Brendan Rice's tape. I think at this stage in the draft, like you're looking for like traits, I think, in players. And if there's some traits you like, you could grab them. So when I watched Rice's tape, I saw like an ultra competitive player, like work ethic through the roof. He works hard on every snap, doesn't take plays off. He works hard coming back to the ball to help out his quarterback. He works hard on contesting catches. He's great in the scramble drill. So like this guy, big heart, big work ethic. He's got the genes. So like I think he's got a good chance to go like even round 2 in the NFL draft, I would not be shocked. I mean, likely it's round 3 or 4, but like I would not be shocked if he goes like late round 2 in the NFL draft. I really liked his tape. And then I'll talk about again about Johnny Wilson, who I also liked. This guy's a huge receiver, huge receiver. I think he's like 6'7". He looks like a tight end.
Mhm.
He's huge, but like he's got the feet of a receiver. I was shocked at how great his feet were for such a big player. Like if he was depth chart tight end, he would be much higher for me in this format. But the fact is he's a receiver and he doesn't run great routes. He's too big. That's not his game. But like I did see some good traits in him. So I like the pick here. I think he could be like a late day 2 pick as well.
All right, let's take a look at pick number 8 in the 4th round. Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire, running back. Actually, we got a bunch of running backs in a row here, followed by Tyrone Tracy, running back out of Purdue, Frank Gore, running back out of Southern Mississippi, Cody Schrader, running back out of Missouri, Dylan Johnson, running back out of Washington, and then a couple of quarterbacks to round out the 4th round. Joe Milton out of Tennessee and Michael Pratt out of Tulane. Thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so I'm not going to hate on the running backs picked here. I think the run on pass catchers from like 4.3 to 4.7 kind of killed the tier. So I don't mind grabbing the running backs at this stage. I just wish the two that went at 401 and 402 were pushed back after the pass catchers. But I don't know much to say on the running backs. I don't know how they're going to do it all. It'll all depend on draft capital. But I'll talk about the quarterbacks. I think I like drafting quarterbacks at this stage in the draft that you could throw on your taxi. And like if you think they have a chance at winning like a backup job, you could just throw them on their taxi. And then if there's an injury, they could be sold for like maybe even a second round pick in a future rookie draft. So I really like the idea of grabbing a quarterback who you think has legit upside to be like a backup at the very least. And if I'm going to talk about one of them, it's Pratt because I liked Pratt's tape and I think he's got a chance to go higher in the NFL draft. He doesn't really have an NFL arm, but he's accurate and he has some decent tape. So I like the pick a lot at this stage. I think he probably should have gone earlier in a 14-team league.
All right, fair enough. Let's take a look at the 5th round, starting with wide receiver Jamari Thrash out of Louisville.
I like Jamari Thrash, and I think I would have picked him above the running backs that went before. For me, he's like a good route runner. And he's got good like yak ability. He's slippery, and I just liked his tape.
Okay. Second pick was Jared Wiley out of TCU and Eric All out of Iowa. Both those guys are tight ends. And then a stream of 3 running backs. Louis Reese Zamet. Actually, this was the guy that the Kansas City Chiefs signed out of Great Britain, the rugby player. So he's going to be in as a running back, so didn't actually go to college. And then, as I mentioned, Kendall Milton out of Georgia, Blake Watson out of Memphis, and then a quarterback, Jordan Travis out of Florida State. Any thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Jordan Travis. For me, even though I do like drafting quarterbacks at this stage that can sit in your taxi, I think Travis, even though I think his tape was decent, I think it's a bit of a wasted pick because he just had a terrible, terrible leg injury at the end of his college season. And I don't expect he'll be healthy enough to play even in training camp. So I think he's a candidate for IR in his rookie season. So I think NFL teams will push him down the draft board. He's already a late round pick as it is, just based on his tape. And I think based on the injury as well, he's getting pushed even further down draft boards. Could possibly even go undrafted, though I think that's probably unlikely. But I expect he'd go on IR for his first season. And then, we've seen with players that go on IR in their rookie season, they lose all their dynasty value. Like look at Hendon Hooker. He was drafted in the second round of most rookie drafts last year at this stage. Before the NFL draft, but he was coming off a big injury. And now if you try to, even though I don't know, I feel like Hendon Hooker still has some promise, but because Goff played well and he's seeking a new contract, I think like Hendon Hooker has pretty much lost all the value he had at this stage last year. Maybe you're going to get him. Maybe if you like him, you could trade a 3rd round pick for him, but probably he's worth like a 4th round pick at this stage. So my point is drafting injured players that are not particularly talented. I just don't like the play.
Okay. Any thoughts on Luis Reese Zamet. I know he ran like a 4.38, I think it was, as a running back, but obviously doesn't have a ton of NFL, or I should say football experience, being a rugby player. There's been a bit of news on him, and there have been other rugby players that have tried to make the transition to the NFL that have pretty much all failed, but none of them have had, I guess, the acclaim that Reese Zamet has had. I don't know if you followed much on him at all, but he has been drawing a little bit of attention, although I think maybe this point of the draft is probably an appropriate time to maybe take a flyer on a guy like that.
Yeah, I would say so. I think like it's going to be hard to just learn a new position at this stage of in his career. I think I would imagine that he's going to be like a special teams player. You know,
Yeah.
he's really really athletic. So I'd imagine he's going to be given a shot on special teams in the preseason and see how he does, and he'll have to earn a roster spot that way.
Yeah, I was looking at him. He looks like a good-looking guy. Like I can see the Chiefs putting him on posters and selling tickets to the ladies. Because yeah, he looked like a good guy to try to get the crowd to come out for. Anyways, let's move on with the next set of guys here. Taken 8th in the 5th round was Dallin Holker, tight end out of Colorado State, followed by Dante Miller, running back out of South Carolina, and then Jace McClellan went 10th in the 5th round, running back out of Alabama. Tight end out of Arizona, Tanner McLaughlin went 11th in the 5th round, and then 12th in round 5 was Rasheen Ali, running back out of Marshall.
Okay,
Any
I'll
thoughts?
say that. Yeah, sure. I'll say that. Like I said about drafting quarterbacks, I like drafting tight ends in this format because it's a two tight end format. I like taking chances on tight ends that could go like round 3, 4, 5 in the NFL draft because you know what, they could eventually earn a starting spots at some point and then be fantasy viable. With tight ends, like a lot of tight end twos are like TD dependent players. So like grabbing these guys here, I think it's an okay play. You're not taking much of a risk for a lot of upside. But my favorite pick at this stage was in fact Rasheen Ali, running back. I really liked his tape. I thought like he's a one cut running back, runs with good speed, good acceleration, good patience. I liked his tape a lot. I think I would have taken Rasheen Ali over the two players taken at 401 and 402, Vidal and who was it? Vidal and
Davis, Isaiah Davis.
Davis. Yeah. So I like his tape over those two guys, and I think he's even probably more likely to go higher in the NFL draft. So I really like this pick at 512.
Okay, and the final two picks of the draft, DeCorian Clark at 513, wide receiver out of UTSA, and Jalen Coker, wide receiver out of Holy Cross. DeCorian Clark was actually my pick at 513, and he was the only player that I picked because I'm in win now mode, so I really didn't have any picks, and I traded a bunch away for futures as well to try to gain value. But for me, just looking at Clark, I like his tape. I like the fact that he's able to win contested catches, and that's the thing I like to see out of wide receivers, especially late flyers. When you're looking at their tape, are they winning the one-on-one battles? When there's a 50-50 ball put up by the quarterback, I think if you're coming down with that ball more times than not, then you're going to get more confidence from your quarterback to throw you balls, even when you're covered, particularly one-on-one. If it's just one-on-one, then, being able to make that back shoulder grab or to be able to come back and out jump your opponent for the ball, I think you get more confidence out of your quarterback for being able to do that. So I liked watching those highlights on DeCorian Clark in particular. Jalen Coker, I don't know much about him. He was the final pick, Mr. Irrelevant, in our draft. But there you have it. 5 completed rounds in a 14-team, 2 tight end draft. Looking back on everything altogether, Vaz, what were your thoughts on the draft for this season?
Okay, looking back on everything together, I'll say I think it's clear that I thought running backs were overdrafted. This is a stacked receiver class. The running backs are one of the weakest positions in the draft class. So I think in our particular draft, running backs were definitely overdrafted and receivers were pushed too far down the draft board for me. I'll say that one owner in particular really crushed. He ended up with just like value at every stage. He ended up getting Xavier Worthy at pick 18, Burton, who I'm really high on at pick 29, and then he came away with three studs early in the draft as well. I think Jaden Daniels, Brock Bowers, and what was the last one there? Maybe
Was it
oh, Marvin Harrison,
yeah.
Jr. So yeah, one owner in our league totally changed his entire team around in one draft, and yeah, I'm so super envious of him.
Yeah, he is definitely going to be a scary, scary team in a couple of years. And yeah, I didn't realize he got Burton as well. But yeah, he got some good sleepers down there as well. Anyways, that wraps up our draft. If you have any thoughts on where some of the players were taken, please do comment in our comment section. Let us know what you thought about the picks and which picks that you thought were the best value or perhaps the biggest reach, just to let our league members know as well. And of course, remember to subscribe to the channel, like this video. We're going to keep producing videos leading up to the NFL draft. And of course, we're going to have a ton more videos during and after the NFL draft is completed as well. So stay up to date with us. Remember the channel name, Fantasy Football Freaks.